to another episode of Geek Shop on Chetan, and with me is Chris.
Hey everybody.
So, Chris, I have a question for you. This is not even all artists, anyone working that has to go through daily life, and mostly artists, they drink coffee. So that's part of our work routine. So
Mhm.
now I know you're not a coffee drinker, right?
That's true.
Yes. So, but coffee has influenced a lot of people in creating work.
Yes, I agree. And I think I use coffee as a storytelling device a lot.
Definitely in TikTok, Tom, coffee is our secondary character, actually.
Yeah, and it's actually really common in storytelling in general. I mean, look at like Friends, the show Friends, they would go to the coffee shop all the time.
Oh, yes.
Seinfeld would go to the cafe all the time.
Yes.
So it's um it's not uncommon to use coffee as a storytelling device, or at least the act of getting coffee to be a storytelling device.
And I think coffee is still on the bounds of, it is addictive, caffeine and all that stuff, but it doesn't have the bad what do you call it? Um Stereotypes or whatever as soft drinks do.
Yeah, and I think it's also seemed a bit more intergenerational. Like I feel like you can start coffee in about your late to mid-teens, like somebody can be drinking coffee, and they can go all the way to like till their death drinking
Yes.
coffee, and it's not seen bad. But if you see somebody like drinking soda, it kind of you think they're teenagers, like no matter what age they're supposed to be. It's like, and to some degree, you would almost see like if I like I have one of my villain in my and I have the Blue Orchid's mother is in my thing, and the villain is also sort of an older man. If they were seen drinking sodas, it would be sort of funny, even if it was normal.
Actually, that's
Whereas,
I didn't think about that with the teenager thing. That you hit it on the spot.
yeah. So coffee is one of those things that I think that you can have people drinking for a longer period of time. I mean, there is a certain age, I think, when, if you have like a little kid drinking coffee, it might be a little bit weird. Not that the kids don't drink coffee. I do know little kids who like to sip coffee now and then, but I think that it'd be a little bit weird. Whereas I think once you get past like late teenage, you can drink coffee and it's totally normal
Well,
and it never changes.
and I know you're in Asian countries and Middle East going around, and in those cultures, coffee and tea is prominent drinks for family members, throughout the morning, breakfast, lunch, and dinner time. So even no joke, even in Indian culture, 5-year-olds drink tea.
Sure. In most Asian cultures that I've lived, when you go to a restaurant, you don't get glasses of water, you get a cup of tea.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
And even it's free. It's some there's like a lot of the sort of like in Thailand and in Myanmar and some of the places like I've been a lot. When you go to like the street side places, like the place where you eat on the streets, there's often just a jug of tea sitting there. Like it's just there all the time, and you drink. That's what you drink. Like there isn't even, you basically sit down and the tea is just there for you, ready to go, and then you order your
And
food.
one thing, unlike North American culture, especially our Canadian and American culture, where you have brands like Starbucks and all that, Tim Hortons and Dunkin' Donuts and all those brands, uh, they're just pushing coffee, coffee workday thing, workday, in the morning, get it for your work ethics and all this and that. Where in Asian culture, it's part of life. It's like, it's kind of like a ritual. It's you have to have your coffee. It's not one of those things where it's an addiction type of thing. It's part of, you know, it, in certain ways, like the green tea and stuff like that cleanses your body and everything. So it's part of our culture.
Yeah, and I would say that in Mediterranean, like I lived in Greece for a while too. Tea is a or coffee is a huge part of the culture. Like, and it's not even the drinking the coffee itself; it's the having the coffee.
That's
So
it. Yes.
the idea of like it's a social thing, like whether you drink it or not, is sort of irrelevant. It's more just like sitting down and having coffee and tea with friends. And it's almost like, to us when we were when we worked at the art supply store, and we used to go after work. And to be honest, like what you had or how much coffee or whatever was irrelevant, but it was about going to the coffee shop, sitting down and doodling, and just
And
sort of being together doing that.
that said, I mean, come on. I mean, we used to, Chris, myself, Patrick, Tom, and a couple other creative people. Most of our times were either working at the comic shop or at the coffee shop. Those are the three places we'd be at. And
Yeah,
it's funny because I remember our friend Alan all the time. When he needed to look for us, he'd look for us at the comic shop or at the coffee shop, and he'd find
yeah,
us.
yeah. Yeah, it's a big, I mean, the one thing about a coffee shop, I think, is just, it's funny because I talk about this, people talk about like, what is Tim Hortons? And, because when I'm overseas, there is Tim Hortons overseas. I mean, there's one in
Yes,
Thailand, there's several in Thailand. And in Dubai, it's actually, there's more Tim Hortons than there is Starbucks in Dubai. But people ask me sort of what the culture of Tim Hortons is. Like if they're going to go to Canada, I say, oh, well, you'll get to, you should go to Tim Hortons. I said, don't worry about finding one because there'll be one. They're
everywhere.
everywhere. But part of the thing about it, I find, is that Tim Hortons doesn't as much sell donuts and coffee, but they also sell a bit of community. And so the idea that it's like you'll be driving across Canada and you'll pull into this small town and there'll be a bunch of farmers talking about grain, what grain seeds they're using that year, sitting around Tim Hortons having that chat, or a Boy Scout troop
And
doing something there.
coffee shop in my area, it's one of those no-name coffee shops. It closed down, but it's been around for a long, long time. As I remember, old man used to play dominoes there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So what I find is it's more of a community thing. And I think that's also what brings it into storytelling, like comic books and everything too, is it's often the coffee is sort of secondary to the
it
idea of like,
is.
friendship, the idea of getting together. Like even in TikTok Tom, the idea of like, why would Tom go visit, Stinky on the street? And sometimes it's just to drop him off a cup of coffee.
That's it. And Tommy O's very good at that. He always has someone dropping off a coffee to Stinky. Now,
Yeah,
one thing I will say is like, and mentioning Tom Yo is, well, I'm going to use Tom as an example. Carry a sketchbook, go to a coffee shop, spend whatever $2 on a coffee, sit down, spend 2, 3 hours sitting there drawing away. And here's the thing, and you look over, there's another person drawing or another person on his or her laptop or reading or something. And
yeah,
I've met so many people sitting there at coffee shops and going, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?"
yeah. It's true. It's definitely, it's funny because it's such a big part of like the creative place where you work that it does make its way into your stories. Because when you're writing a story or drawing a story, your influence is sort of like, well, where should my characters meet up? And it's like, well, I got a coffee shop, so I'll just draw that in, you know?
And the funny part was, young, 20 and 30-year-old me, we knew which coffee shops were around, and you knew because this was before Starbucks blew up and even Tim Hortons blew up and stuff. You knew where the small coffee shops were and stuff, and you kind of knew, let's say, Chris Stewart's going to be working here, so most likely he's going to go to this coffee shop or that coffee shop. And
Yeah.
and no joke, you'd walk, and a lot of times I've done this where, finishing work, walking downtown, then all of a sudden you look over into the window of the coffee shop and you see one of your friends with a coffee cup and doodling away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very true. And I also find that the employees at coffee shops make the difference too. Like, I think we would choose our coffee shops based on people
That's
working
it.
there.
Yes.
So like I remember there was one second cup we used to go to, and it was in the business district, but by the time we went after work, there was like no business people there whatsoever. And it was mostly just us and like the coffee guy. Occasionally people would kind of run in to get like a couple cops might come in to get some coffee or something, but that's about it. But I remember he basically we buy a coffee, and that would be it for the night.
I remember once, was it Second Cup, I think, and these are coffee shops in Canada. Sitting there after, was it after work? I think I went, same like you. I went there and sat down, got my sketchbook out, started drawing and stuff. And next to me was a group of three police officers sitting there, drinking their coffee, talking away. And one of them leaned over and looked and said, "Hey, what are you drawing?" And and the funny part on that was it was a story I was doing, and it had police officers in it, and it was a futuristic police officer. So I showed it to all of them and go, would you say this is good for a futuristic police officer? And no joke, we ended up talking for a little bit about it.
Nice. Yeah.
So,
It's amazing. Like
yeah,
the people you get, like I can imagine that at least for Tom Yo, a majority of the people that are in the background of TikTok Tom comics have walked into a coffee shop with him being there at some point.
probably yes, yes.
You know, I think that's definitely the case. And I
Now
think the
here's
other
the
thing
thing.
about coffee shops is it's sort of internationally known.
It
Like,
is because coffee, even if like you see it in European countries or Asian countries, some guy taking a mug of coffee, going outside, sitting on the rock or ledge or something, drinking coffee away and looking at everything going around him or her. That's culture. And unfortunately, in North America, you know, you don't see that too much. Where in Asian countries, you see that, guy standing, on the street corner with his coffee, drinking away.
yeah, yeah, just the idea of sitting like I find the sort of North American view, and maybe parts of Europe as well. The view is you sort of get your coffee on your way to doing something, as opposed to getting your coffee and that is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's although the characters in TikTok Tom definitely, I mean, but they don't really have jobs, right? So
Now, one thing I do remember years ago reading, I was reading a David Lynch interview, and he's a well, I mean, he passed away, so he was a heavy coffee drinker. And I remember his famous quote saying, "A bad coffee is better than having no coffee at all."
I could see that's a common expression I've heard with many things, but I could see how it could work with coffee. It's funny though, because I don't actually drink coffee. So it's like, one of my challenges actually about when I do that, and even when used to go, was trying to find something that wasn't coffee that I would be okay with, that wasn't just like, it was either hot chocolate or tea is generally my options. So,
Well,
you know,
but here's the thing. I mean, unless, in your story with Blue Orchid, you could have someone with a mug like this and they're drinking away and you could think that's tea because of the culture. But most
yeah,
of the time when you see someone with a mug like this, you know, 99% of the time you're thinking it's coffee.
it's true. It's very true. It's sort of the classic sort of trope of that sort of thing. There's
And here's
actually
the thing.
something funny in filmmaking about drinking coffee in movies. It's a classic sort of thing where if you ever want to see prop guys rarely in movies rarely actually put liquid in coffee cups. And you can always tell actors how good an actor is by how well they can fake the coffee cup. And so if you start watching TV, you'll start noticing that sometimes actors will just sit there and like, won't even like carry the cup properly or anything.
Oh,
It's one of the most
really?
common mistakes in film is actors trying to fake drink coffee.
Oh, wow.
There's whole reels on YouTube where you can literally just watch people drinking coffee poorly, faking drinking coffee poorly in movies and TV, and like really bad things. Like it's obvious there's no water in this cup.
One of the earliest things I remember for coffee was on television is, and this is going to show my age, WKRP in Cincinnati. Uh,
Yeah,
um,
Johnny Fever had the big mug.
Yeah, he had the mug. He always carried the mug around. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's the earliest, memory of, someone heavily drinking coffee.
yeah, yeah. The notion there though is that Johnny Fever is kind of a maybe on the wacky tobacco a little too
Oh
much
yeah, oh
and
yeah. That
partying too hard, so he needs it to kind of get through his day. So that's the other
now,
thing too, is you can use it as a device in storytelling. You know, you can have somebody who's partied all day, but you don't have to show them partying all day. But if you show them kind of bleary-eyed with a cup of coffee after, and then first thing in the morning, and the character says rough night, you can go, yeah, like just the fact that they have that big cup of coffee makes it seem more dire.
so this kind of brings up a interesting thing. What you mentioned earlier about teenagers drinking soft drinks and you know, teenagers and stuff like that. And if you look at again drinking coffee, you have a character with a or let's say a comic character with a coffee cup in a hand or a movie actor with a coffee cup. You're not thinking too much of it. But if you have a soft drink in the hand, your mind starts thinking, why are they drinking this and that? Or if they have a cigarette in their hand, it's another, thing where coffee, no one thinks about it.
It's true. It's like, except for if it's a big cup and they look tired.
Yes, like Johnny Fever. Yeah.
Yeah, like Johnny Fever. But yeah, you're right. It's funny. Like, it's funny because like, say we were to imagine putting Superman into all of those positions. So if he had a cup of coffee, you sort of think, oh, he's running late for work. Maybe,
That's it.
he's going to the
Yes.
Daily Planet. But if you had a soda pop, you'd be like, why is Superman drinking cola?
That's
And if
it.
he had a
Yep.
cigarette, oh my God, that would
Oh,
be
that would be
earth
just,
shattering,
yeah.
you know? So it's interesting. It's interesting how little things like that, like when you think about it, for drawing comic books and telling stories, the little prop that you can put with your character can actually tell you a lot about what that character is going through.
Well, that's right. When Tom Yo and I did our massive trade paperback, and I'm going to promote it now, Between Planets, it's most of the story is about coffee, zombies
Yeah.
and coffee, and it's about coffee being manufactured in hell, and how hell uses that to, get your soul because you're addicted to it.
Yeah. It's
So
interesting.
we've had coffee themes all the way through our comics, and it is good. So you're not a coffee drinker, so it's interesting. Next question I would have asked is, what kind of coffees do you drink? Strong, instant coffee, doesn't matter.
I mean, I've never had coffee in my life. And there was, now you might even know this place. There used to be this club, and I think it's still there in Toronto on Queen Street, and it has a bunch of like, it almost looks like trash on the wall. And I forget the name of the club right now. It was like a goth club, like a
Bovine,
nightclub. Yeah, it might have
bovine.
been Bovine. And they opened there during the day for a while, and I don't know if they still are. And it was really great because in the summer it was really hot outside
Oh,
Toronto.
yes, you're right. They used to have yes, it was a coffee shop during the daytime and a club at night.
So
Yes,
I used to
yes.
go there, and one of the only coffees I've ever enjoyed, I used to get coffee there all the time. And it was a cinnamon, like a sweet, slightly sweet cinnamon coffee they would make. And for whatever reason, I was like, I loved it. And it was great because, again, in the middle of the summer when it's really hot outside and you want to just go inside, it's a goth club. So there's like no windows at
Oh,
all,
you're gonna start up
kind
a
of
fight
dark.
now. You're gonna start up a fight now with people. Coffee wise. Cinnamon, come on.
I'll stand on that. But I will also argue that I am not a coffee aficionado.
Okay.
So my
Because then
opinion is
again,
not worth anything.
I remember we went on a road trip with a bunch of friends, family friends, and four of us ordered coffee. One's putting milk, no cream and sugar and all kinds of stuff. And restaurants are looking at them going, one just drank it black, one drank it with milk, and I drank it with sugar. And no joke, conversation came up going, "What crap are you putting in your coffee?" So that's another topic also. Do you just drink it plain black, or do you put sugar, or even go far cinnamon, or pumpkin spice or whatever?
I'm okay with that, but only because I generally don't like coffee. So, if you could somehow make a cinnamon drink, I would probably be happier. So,
And I
yeah,
remember every time we've had appearances in Oshawa at Worlds Collide, Brian, who owns the Worlds Collide store now, he used to bring jugs of coffee. And no joke, he would say, "I'll make a second run." And it's like, he knew us. He knew us because all of us would be drinking a coffee all day, drawing, talking and stuff. And
yeah.
that's one funny part, which I was telling, I think, was it you or Tom Yo? We were talking about it and saying, all of us when we got together, we never drank alcohol or anything together, but we drank tons of coffee.
Yeah, yeah, that was definitely a thing for us. It was, I mean, that shows our nerdy side, I guess. But it was like, all hours of the night. I mean, we had a few fun evenings at clubs, but I think for the most part, we generally just,
Yeah, most of the time it was just coffee and just sitting around drawing and stuff. Now,
yeah.
just to end the topic now, coffee. Is there do or don'ts about coffee that you'd say for comics?
I'm trying to think if there's do or don'ts. I mean, there's certain characters I don't think that can, that I think there's certain characters that if they drank too much, I mean, Flash can drink lots of coffee. Maybe Batman wouldn't.
What
I
about
don't know.
Hulk? Hulk on coffee?
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be a good idea.
Wow, our geek meter's going high today
Yeah,
with this
yeah,
one.
yeah. I
That's an
mean, we could
interesting
get,
thought now. Which character would be worst on coffee?
yeah, yeah. Trying to think of that offhand. I mean, Human Torch, that would be, I don't even know how that would work. You know,
Uh,
it would be like the coffee. If he had a coffee cup, wouldn't it just burn in his hand and wouldn't evaporate when he was drinking it?
yeah, but I would say someone like Reed Richards shouldn't be drinking coffee because, all the big machinery and, gadgets he's working on, his hands should be shaking.
That's true. Although you picture him working all night on like, trying to, devise the gadget that can, destroy Galactus, and he can't go to sleep because he's got to finish it. So,
Yes.
are there any characters that have like coffee as part of their like thing? Like they
Too much,
always like,
too much coffee, man.
yeah, there's too much coffee, man, for sure.
And that was a great
Um,
comic. That was a great
it
comic.
was, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm saying like like I think Flash had a coffee thing. Like I think he used to go to a coffee shop, or there was a few series. I know in the TV series, and then I don't know if they brought that into the comics or vice
yes, in the
versa.
TV series, he went to a coffee shop, but in the comics, it was mostly him eating a lot.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was any characters that were sort of like
The one
would always
character
have a
I do
coffee.
remember constantly drinking coffee was Daredevil.
Okay.
I remember him drinking coffee because, again, like Batman, he's working the nights,
Yeah.
so, which would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So it becomes important. But and I mean, I imagine like Commissioner Gordon and the
Yeah.
cops would always
No, Commissioner
anybody
Gordon
who,
always had a coffee and a cigarette in his hand. I remember that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could get into the topic of why they've gotten rid of cigarettes in comic books entirely nowadays.
All that, I think that's an obvious, I mean, everyone knows the answer to that.
I guess the question of that would be, is it a bad thing they've gotten rid of cigarettes out of comic books?
Okay, that's for another topic. That's for another topic. But coffee wise, not coffee it's funny. It's like if you look for your comics and stuff now, and like you said, even TV shows and stuff, you notice the background. Yeah, we're at a coffee shop, or they just got a coffee, walked in, and that's a common thing, and you don't think about it because that's a everyday life situation. Like you said, if you had a soda pop or a cigarette in the hand, boom, you'd react and go, "What? Why is he or she carrying that?"
Yeah, yeah. But if it's a coffee, you don't think about it as much.
Okay, so that's it. That was an interesting talk on coffee.
Yeah, and we're still waiting for the TikTok Tom coffee to
Yes, coming soon. Coming soon. We have to find a supplier and packaging and all that stuff.
come out.
Coming
There you
soon.
go.
Well, thank you for watching today and join us again later. Take care.